People who did a long time, 5 years plus, in prison. What was your biggest shock of the outside world? 5 years for aggravated assault and robbery. I was 3 months past my 18th birthday when I was sentenced. I lived in a small railroad town in south-central PA. I guess one of the biggest shocks for me was how much the town had changed. The scrub land where we rode our bikes and dirt bikes is now a strip mall. My friend's driveway is now the main road through that part of town. Someone fixed up the old dive bar and turned it into a fairly popular restaurant and bar. Hell, whole developments popped up all over the place. And while I wouldn't exactly call the changes gentrification, the town certainly has improved as far as standards of living, without ridiculously increasing the cost of living. Shock number 2 was internet access. AOL, NetZero, Earthlink, etc. were the go-tos then, but phased out within a couple years of my release as faster access from cable companies became more widely available and affordable. Great question, Op. I don't often get to chime in on this sub. I've been listening to some old R&B and hip-hop whilst on furlough, and hearing the artists reference AOL is bizarre and brings back some nostalgic memories. Main one that springs to mind is Destiny's Child, Bugaboo. Back in the day it was the cable company. Now you mention AOL and people go ow who. Speaking about my uncle, he was fascinated with online shopping. He had been in prison for about 30 years and he didn't believe that you can just order stuff from the internet and it would be delivered. So we ordered dinner from Seamless, my treat, and he practically power walked to the door when the bell rang. He swung the door open and enthusiastically greeted the delivery boy. Poor delivery boy, my uncle is this huge tattooed dude with a giant burn scar across his face, lol. My father told me one of my distant relatives, I don't really associate with that side of my family, got out in the late 2000s after being locked up for the better part of 30 years and was blown away by how people treated him. Apparently it was originally only a 10-year stay, but he was caught between a prison fight where someone died and they added 20 years. He was in for drug manufacturing, trafficking originally. He told me when he got out that people were accepting of his past and didn't hold it against him. He was so taken back by it made him paranoid to the point he just wanted to go back to prison. He was holed up in his wife's house all the time. Works from home, his wife owns some online business, and suffers from night terrors. I've met him a few times over the years, and he's the nicest guy you could ever meet. Very, very timid around new people though. From what I understand now, he's doing much better in life. I see him and his wife on FB traveling, not currently, of course, around the US, and they do volunteering work to help prisoners who have been locked up adjust to the current world. I was a CO and had a few inmates tell me that smartphones and how compact things are today is the biggest shock. My prison looked like it was permanently stuck in the 90s. Half of our computers were from the 90s. My uncle has been in and out of prison since 2000. His longest sentence was for armed robbery of a bank, his bank to be exact. When he got out, he said the biggest surprise was actually how much the cost of living had gone up, at least in my hometown. When he went in, rent for a 3BD house was probably $800 a mo. When he got out he realized everything had gone up to about $1,500 a mo. I interned at a private criminal defense firm. The most notable shock of any of our released clients had to be one man who in prison for 16 years, odd amount because he was paroled as part of plea deal. He had a daughter who was just a child at the time he was incarcerated, and when he got out, she had just had a baby, his first grandchild. She didn't tell him about the pregnancy beforehand, she wanted it to be a surprise upon his release. I wasn't there when our old client met his newest family member or his now adult daughter, but when he came in a few months later, he still couldn't talk about the new baby without crying happy tears. He had a picture in his wallet of his daughter when she was little he brought with him to prison, and showed us the new picture of his grandchild he keeps with it now. A cousin of mine went away for 22 years. The first thing he wanted to do is finally beat Spyro. I guess he just had to know what happened at the end. But I didn't have my original memory card, so I just bought him the new remastered trilogy. His mind was blown. Speaking for someone else, I had a TA in college who was an ex-felon due to a dumb situation he got involved in when he was a teenager. He was tried as an adult and did 10 years. When he got out, he said the strongest immediate impression he got was from trees. He said, they were so huge and looming, and he always felt like they were leaning toward him, like they were about to fall over. I have a brother who spent some time in jail, should probably still be there, but he got a hold of me through Facebook after he got out and was amazed by smartphones. I blocked him after that, and he made a new Facebook account and I blocked him again. He asked one of my siblings why he can't find me, and she told him I probably blocked him, and he was shocked. You can block people as well. She then blocked him as well. Just money in general. You have no idea how to handle money. That takes a little time to get used to. My cousin did 19 years following involvement in a bank robbery. For one thing, I will tell you, there isn't a happier guy on God's earth. He takes his freedom as an absolute joy, and anything that happens, he takes it in stride. The big thing I noticed with him is, cell phones and how much we use them was absolutely alien to him. He knew they existed and lots of people had smartphones, but people sitting around looking at them all the time struck him as amazing. I mentioned this to him once and he said to me, when I was a kid, we had to have commercials on TV to remind kids to learn to read. Now I see everyone can read, and write too, even if they're kids. And they talk to people around the world when they do? It's amazing. What a gift. Always stands out to me, how he said what a gift. These things have of course been corrupted for us now, being used to steal data about everything we do and inundate us with paid-for propaganda and scams. But my cousin at the time saw a potential in these devices and how they had improved the lives of the younger people in the family, because he went away when he was 20, came out around 40, and saw a totally different world from the desperate place he was when he tried to drive getaway for those guys. Not me, but my uncle. He was in prison for 10 years and the biggest shock to him was the new technology since he was put in jail in 2007. iPods. Went in, no one had a cell phone. Came out, and you had everything in your hand. Camera, phone, internet, porn, music, games. Got locked up when I was 12, got out when I was 17, so there were other things, like not being in control anymore, open spaces, loud noises, silence, friends, girls, crowds. I skipped getting an education altogether, even in prison, so I didn't socialize like normal people. Being in a school, or college really made me uncomfortable. I tried to go back to school, but it was pointless. You had the internet. Kids in general were weird as fuck to me. I'm used to waking up people afraid of what I might do, then I'm learning how to use the internet on my own, non-stop jerking off and Wikipedia in between two jobs to pay my rent, being a kid with no education, no support. Shit was hard. I had to make my own food. Shit sucked. I couldn't cook at all. I fucked up everything. Too broke most of the time to buy food. Too young to get assistance from the government. Life was rough. Having an apartment, that was weird. I smashed everything into a corner and basically walled off the rest of the place. Eventually I stopped living indoors altogether, can't handle it. Fucks with my head, I would rather live in a bear den than an apartment. But iPods were the biggest shock. Couldn't believe they were real and that I hadn't heard of them. I went in around the first iPhone. Came out around 2014, and what disturbed me the most wasn't so much smartphones but how everyone everywhere had one in their hand staring at it. It felt very Black Mirror, Twilight Zone-ish. My brother's been in prison for 20 plus years. To be honest, it doesn't seem like there is much that doesn't shock him. Fridges with ice and water, electronics in cars. Smartphones and game systems. Everything can seem overwhelming to someone who's been inside since the 90s.